Welcome in to the 365 Sports Sick'em 365 Baylor postgame show. I'm Paul Catalina alongside Jacob Wilson. And Jacob, this is going to be a rough one. I'll just tell you right now.
Yes, it is, Paul.
We do not have a lot of positives to talk about when it comes to the Baylor Bears, who, against Kansas State, enter the game controlling their own destiny.
Mm-hmm.
All four of the teams that were at this bottleneck of the Big 12 controlled their own destiny tonight. Two teams at the end of it will not. And Texas is now down, I believe it's 16-3 with an extra point in the way to TCU. So right now, the rematch that we will be getting if everything holds tonight will be TCU versus Kansas State, which was a really good game. Kansas State versus Baylor was not. 31-3. Kansas State rolled in this game.
Yeah.
From the minute Blake Shapen threw an interception in the red zone in the first quarter on, Baylor could not do anything to excite the crowd, which was sold out, all decked out in black. The Baylor fans really showed up and showed out today and were rewarded with that performance.
Yeah, it's really disappointing. There was a lot of excitement around this game. The fans were the ones that generated it. And, I mean, like you said, that interception was a real momentum killer, not just for a period of time, for the whole entirety of the game. And the defense, they didn't look too bad, but they were also not doing things to get themselves off of the field. And then I need to go and look at time of possession because Baylor's offense could not stay on the field. And it was just disappointing after 2 weeks where they looked really good on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, this was they weren't complete at all in this game. This was the most incomplete game they had. They were bad on defense. They were bad on offense all the way around. When Will Howard came in, this game changed. Now, Adrian Martinez was 7 of 8, but only for 25 yards. He was dinking and dunking. And Deuce Vaughn had a Deuce Vaughn-like game, 22 carries, 104 yards. And 8 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown. And that touchdown seemed to me to be the one that kind of popped the balloon completely.
Yeah.
Was you just saw he made everybody look so silly, and it was over after that. 254-339-1122. Here to take your calls. Puduk, KSU Wildcats. Look, they earned it today.
Yes, they did.
I mean, they really did. The difference in these two teams coming in, and it's weird. It was the one thing I thought that Kansas State did really much better than Baylor consistently throughout the season. Kansas State has a killer instinct, and Baylor doesn't. And when it was 17-0, that game was over. Now, Baylor went down the field and got the field goal before halftime, but I think in order to flip the momentum in the game, they were going to need that to be a touchdown.
Yeah.
And when it wasn't, it was just kind of like, well, at least that's something. Came out, just kept stalling. 3rd downs, 4th downs, nothing worked for them tonight. So call us, text us 254-339-1122, and we'll get to your comments. But that was, Baylor for all intents and purposes, while not mathematically eliminated yet, because again, things could get really crazy if they beat TCU and Texas and then, K-State loses to
explain this one in its entirety because I know that it's very, very unlikely, even though Baylor is not mathematically completely technically done.
So Kansas State would have to lose out.
Right.
Baylor would have to win out. And then some other things would have to happen, like tiebreakers and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But again, Kansas State now holds the head-to-head tiebreaker against Baylor. So, really it's all over but the shouting for Baylor when it comes to what the posting is going to be. They're going to a bowl game. They'll go to Houston or San Antonio or Orlando.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, just one of those bowl games that, you won 6 games. You're going to get to go to this game that your fan base and their fan base will care about, but not many other people will.
Yeah, and look, they could still beat Texas. They could still beat TCU. TCU 17-3 with 12 minutes left in that game in Austin. And, so there's potential to do that. But But man, it's just, this is, Jacob, as we were walking out of the stadium tonight, you said, did anybody tell Baylor they were playing for a chance of the conference title? Because it doesn't appear that they did.
Yeah, and they just came out flat. And like that first drive, they moved the ball down the field, and then it kind of just got killed by Blake Shapen trying to make too much happen on that interception. And I was on the sideline next to the Kansas State people the entire game because it's just easier to move around over there for me. And the buzz that was going on that sideline, the energy that they had, it was from the very first snap until the end of the game, like no other team I've seen come into McLean Stadium this year. And it's indicative of how the game turned out because Baylor, they were flat. They abandoned the run for the most part because, I mean, Richard Reese, it didn't impress anyone. 9 carries for 54 yards. That's, or no. That's Richard Reese. 9 carries for 54 yards. That's a 6 per rush average. But they just kept making weird calls, and I can't make heads or tails of it. And look, I mean, if you're frustrated, I think you can finally complain about Blake Shapen because up until this game, I don't think he was the problem in any of the losses that they had. But he was the primary problem tonight.
Yeah, I mean, they never got anything going. They never got anything going in the run game either, really. When you look at how they win games is when they have at least one person take over the game. Richard Reese, 9 carries for 54 yards. That's a great average, but that was it. Squirrel, 4 carries for 17. And Blake Shapen, 7 for 21. And felt to me like he never made the right decision on his own read tonight. No. It was just, he made the, and that was probably, partially him and partially Kansas State giving him reads that he just, couldn't figure out. Yeah. And so, credit to Chris Klieman and Kansas State and what they do. There's so much to talk about with this game here. Let's go to the phones. Matt in DC. The floor is yours, kind sir.
Well, thank you for taking my call. The first words are a complete embarrassment tonight. And I'm not going to say that for the defense. You know what? The defense, you played outstanding, honestly. You held them to 10. You held them to 17 points. You held them to 24 at one point. It was our offense, even though you allowed 31. But if our offense, does their job, scores, complete offensive embarrassment tonight. I am just like, this reminds me of the 2020 game, couple of games, like the Oklahoma State game. 2017 comes to mind. I can't remember last time we just came out so flat. I mean, I think it all started, with the when we had the ball, our first possession. If we score a touchdown there, I think the whole game's different. But honestly, I was in Norman. We played great. Did we just beat Oklahoma and Norman and just not practice all week? This loss is on the coaches, completely on the coaches. You did not hold this team accountable all week. You let their heads get full of themselves because they went into Norman, Oklahoma, and you beat the Oklahoma Sooners, and you let them remember that all week instead of being like, yo, we went out, we're in the Big 12 title game. And guess what? TCU is beating Texas, which means all you had to do was win this week and next week, and the Texas game wouldn't have mattered. The Texas game, the last game of the season wouldn't have mattered. But no, you messed up tonight. Defense, you played great. Offense, 3 damn points. Complete embarrassment. And guess what? All the fans complain about fans not showing up. The team's not mad about fans not showing up. Guess what? No one's come to TCU next week. It's going to be a TCU sellout next week. You had a golden opportunity with a blackout tonight, and you messed it up. Because guess what? Even if we win the next 2, the attendance still isn't going to improve. The whole attendance thing all week, I wish to God fans would show up. But guess what? Golden opportunity to set the hook tonight, and you failed. Offense failed. It's on the coaches. I don't blame the players. The coaches did not hold the team accountable this week. And that's my opinion this week. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but the coaches did not do their job this week. You've got to score points. We used to run a high school offense and score 50 points a game. I'm not saying revert back to that, but this was a complete embarrassment on every single level. And you know what, guys? just win the next game. That's all I can say. Thank y'all.
All right. Thanks for your call, Matt. If you'd like to voice your concerns, 254-339-1122. We'll go into the text line real quick. So from the 361, first a positive, got to point out O-line did play well in both run and pass protection. However, momentum shifted early after the first INT, and it was downhill from there. I'll let others comment on Chapin. The defense was frustrating. If we had a good pass rush, we had a bad coverage, or vice versa. Stop them for a middle of the game, they give up a first down. Sad showing for the recruits on hand. Blackout worked in the case, but not in McLean. At least we're going bowling. Beat TCU from the 361. Yeah, I mean, it just was uneven. Like nothing came together. You know, that nothing was gelling at the right time at the same time for everybody, and that's what was really unfortunate about this game for Baylor. Now, for Kansas State, this just shows you what they have, like what Kansas State has in them, or what Chris Kleiman has instilled is there is a killer instinct in that team that when they see that their opponent is limping, They don't let them get up and stretch.
They don't throw them a life raft. And
no.
And Paul, like I was talking about time of possession before, I'm surprised that it's not a bigger margin, but Kansas State had the ball for 37 minutes of this game and Baylor had it for 22. I would have guessed it was a larger margin than that, but still, like that is not what you want for your offense. And the defense, they didn't really help themselves necessarily because they just let Kansas State slowly score. But you still got to be concerned that the offense couldn't stay on the field.
Yeah. Yeah, they could not. And so, look, next week against TCU is not going to be easy.
No
matter what, like TCU, again, just stopped Texas in a 4th and goal, 17-3. That game continues there. TCU is about to lock up a spot in the Big 12 title game.
Yeah.
And Kansas State will do it with one more win. So,
who does Kansas State have left on their schedule?
Kansas State has, which I would think they would, so at 7-3. They've got West Virginia on the road next week. Tough place to play. Ask Oklahoma and Baylor.
Yeah.
And then the Sunflower Showdown against Kansas.
I think they win both of those games, Paul.
I do too. Yeah, I think that is pretty inevitable. Not at this point, not inevitable, but you never know. And Kansas right now trailing Texas Tech 43-28 in the fourth quarter. I had picked Texas or Kansas in that game, and Tyler Shuck really doing some work tonight, throwing and running the ball. Jason Bean still playing quarterback for Kansas. Keep wondering when Jalen Daniels is going to come back. All right, let's see. Let's go to David in from California. David, go ahead.
Hey, fellas. Hey, how's it going? Hey, would like to know what you guys would think or what you guys do think about the administration's kind of attitudes, leading up to this game. And Paul, specifically, you had Mac on the show this week and Jovan. And, there was a lot of what fans could construe as some adversarialness or some condescending messaging with the tweets on some Baylor Athletics official Twitter's pages. And, it seemed very counterproductive to building the fan engagement. And then when, the fans actually did show up in mass, great crowd, awesome blackout, looked great. And then they, the team, just lays an egg. What are your thoughts on that? And I'm talking specifically about the admin's message here.
Yeah, I think they did. Matt came on our show, and I'll tell you what I thought about what he said, because I get his frustration, because when he came on the show on Tuesday, the ticket sales were awful, and they can track, they get tracking of the resale market, and there were a lot of Baylor fans selling their tickets to Kansas State fans. And so they had kind of hit a point where they didn't know what else they could do, right? I think I understand their frustration, and I'm going to read a text we got here in a second and show you that there's a real dichotomy on this issue, David. But so he said, he was like, look, everybody, 2 years they haven't had a night game. And because one of the excuses they got was, well, the morning games are too early, the 2:30 games are too hot. Well, look, the weather's great today and it's at night. So that excuse was gone. Now, the tailgate guys thing is going to loom over this athletic department and that environment until it changes. I mean, either the tailgate guys change or that goes back to more how it was. But my thoughts on the administration were they were frustrated. Then the blackout opportunity presented itself. And while there was some tug of war with that, they did a great job once they turned the corner. The problem is, David, and I understand that from a fan perspective, I could see that. It's feeling like adversarial. I really understand your perspective on that it feels that way. I think that because of the nature of the Baylor fan base, there's this tug of war between, I think the athletic department, which is they would get rid of excuses because that's what they hear is the excuses, as opposed to, just showing up. The team's good. They're trying to be good. This was not a good showing tonight, but
Paul, if there's one thing I can say is Baylor fans, Waco residents, remember those rough years. Remember how bad they were. 16 years of absolute sucking. This is a much better situation than that. And I think a lot of Baylor fans have forgotten that. And I think it's just a part of being a sports fan, right? You have to go through peaks and valleys with whatever team it is that you root for. And so when this team doesn't get the support that any team at this level, I don't want to say is entitled to, but a 6-win team should probably have a little bit more fan support. I'm not talking about the callers that call in because obviously they care, but the casual fans that we saw leaving the game in the third quarter. I mean, you wonder why there's this tension between the school and the community. It's on both sides. I really think that.
Yeah, I'm going to read this text and I'll show you how the split is because the fans can't even agree on these things. So this is from Matt, who's from Dallas or lives in Dallas now. Hey, at BU football fans, stop watching games like you're waiting on chips and queso at a restaurant. Get the hell up. I'm at McLean tonight and the fan engagement around me is horrific. This is directed mostly at establishment fans. Act like this is a home game. So there's two sides of that, right?
Yeah.
So both sides have to find a happy medium that works for them. And I think that sometimes you're justified in feeling the way that you do. Sometimes you're not. I can tell you this. When you leave, because we have to leave in the third quarter
to get here
so we can do the show. And I understand leaving this game in the third quarter. It was cold. They're getting their butts kicked. You wanted to move on. I completely 100% understand that. But this is not the only game where fans leave in the third quarter, and some of them Baylor's winning, right? Mm-hmm. So, or not losing by that much, and then they come back and win. So the message that sends to a team is when you leave early like that in a close game. Now this one, let's not talk about this one leaving early. This is one where I'll give you an argument to do it. But if you leave early in a game, they're either winning and not by a lot, but like winning or in a close game, then the message you're sending them is, hey team, you do this exactly how we want you to do it or we're going to go. In exactly the conditions we like, or we're going to go. And whether that's true or not, that's the feeling you get. Because if you're the player, you're like, well, this is a great game. Where are all these people going?
Yeah.
Why isn't it loud? So I do think Baylor fans need to do a better job of getting lit and getting just into a game emotionally. And there is a divide between the kind of old establishment fans that treat it like it's church camp and the younger fans who want to be loud in a game. And the administration wants you to be loud. That's what they want.
Yeah, they do. And
the administration needs to find a better way to communicate that to the fans. But it's hard because it's like speaking through a translator.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. It's like if we're in a foreign country and we don't speak the language, and then I'm like, tell them that we want them to be loud. And then the guy goes, well, about what? Well, the game.
Yeah.
Well, why should I be loud? Because you're supposed to be loud, but it's not going the way I want. Still be loud. Like,
Yeah, like at Texas A&M, are they having the season that they wanted? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But those fans, I mean, some might call it dumb, but they are loyal to their team. I got my phone blown up by a thread of a bunch of Aggies, and they're just complaining and they're complaining. But at the end of the day, they're loyal fans. Like, I think that's part of what builds a culture around a football team. I'm not talking about what goes on in the locker room. I'm talking about like as a brand. Because Texas A&M, have they had much success? No. But they're fans. They stick around. They watch. They stay at the game.
Yeah.
Like that's how you establish a culture somewhere.
Yeah. That, I had a friend who the Baylor fan who, and still this day, makes fun of the Aggies, and it's fine. And I grew up in an Aggie household, so I can see it from growing up in an Aggie household, not going there, having a bunch of Aggies in my family, still having a little that fandom in me, but also like seeing all the different places that you go. One of the things Baylor fans used to make fun of them for was the thing that they want the most, which is they want, like Baylor University wants them to be that committed. Maybe not that committed, but like committed. And that's what most and Baylor's not, this is not just immune to Baylor's the only fan base with this affliction. Many, many fan bases are like this. Part of it is, why A&M is like that, or why Ohio State like that, or Auburn, or whoever you want to say that through thick and thin, the fans are crazy. Well, 100 years of doing it consecutively. Why are Nebraska fans, in spite of the fact of the last quarter century, getting kicked in the nards over and over and over again, still going and still loud and still passionate? Because it was built into the DNA of the fan base. Baylor is very new to it. So they're not there yet. I want to talk a little more X's and O's, and we got another phone call on this game, but I do think that is part of it. That it's not in them yet. And it should be, but you can't just change who you are like that.
It must be nice being a Florida State Noel. That way, you're a part of one of those fan bases.
But I'll tell you this: when they were really this is a good team now that they have for the first time since 2016. But for those 5 bad years, right? For the 5 really bad years they had, believe me, it dipped down, and people were apoplectic. And the university relies so much on the ticket sales. That's why they had to do something.
You guys could have rolled out Bert Kreischer without his shirt on, and everyone would have gotten right back into it.
Yeah, we could. Stephen from Virginia. Stephen, always good to hear from you, friend. I was waiting for you to call tonight.
Well, I'm glad that I could call tonight because I have to say that I'm disappointed in the team and I'm disappointed in our fans. And y'all both make really good points about the fan bases. I mean, my family is half A&M and half Baylor. And when I was a kid, I went to an A&M Missouri game, and I looked at them standing up the whole time, and I thought, that's not my crowd. And I didn't even go to Baylor. I'm not from Texas. That's just the way it is. But to be leaving in the third quarter, I mean, you got to believe in this team, man. And I think, y'all made a really good point. It used to be really bad around here. 3-9 was the standard. 4-8 was the standard. So, to have a team that possibly still win 8 regular season games, that's not off the table, and have people continue to leave before the game is over is really disappointing. And, I can't really make up an excuse for that. Just like I can't really make an excuse for how bad the defense was or how bad the offense was. I can't really make an excuse for any of that. So I'm not going to. I'm just going to say that it was a really disappointing game. And, I really hope that better days are ahead. And last year was the greatest season in program history. And it can't be that way every year. But that doesn't mean we don't have to support our Bears the same way every week.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your call, Stephen. Hope all's going well. It's not baseball season for Steven, so he's now has 50% of his life is just boring. He's a big baseball guy, but love Steven. Great call. Yeah, it is. I do think it's weird. I've always felt it's weird that fans make fun of fans who are more engaged. Now, I get it. Like, you can be a level of engaged that's like too much.
Yeah.
You know, the Dr. Pepper Fansville commercial about like you haven't posted anything on the message board, like I think is like pulled right off of TexAgs.com. But
I mean,
you know,
Paul, have you ever been to the city of Philadelphia? I think that's another example.
Yeah. I'll tell you a quick story about that. I was doing stand-up in Philadelphia in 2003 or 4, and I was there. My dad's best friend lived there, and he took me to Geno's and Pat's. We had one cheesesteak at each place across the street, and the Eagles and Cowboys were playing that weekend. And, you know, me, a lifelong Cowboys fan, I was 23, 24 years old. And so the guy at Geno's is like, yeah, we're going to kill the Cowboys this weekend. I'm like, no, you're not. And then Harv, like, just throws an elbow into me like he's Bill Lambier. And I was like, oh, yeah, you know, I'm just kidding. They suck. I don't want you to spit in my food. So, yeah, no, it is. Like, there are levels. I think, like, you don't need to be, you know, weird midnight yell practice crazy. But, like, a little bit of crazy, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know.
A little bit of crazy is very good.
A little bit of crazy, like, would help. So we'll talk some more X and O's. We'll take a break right here. When we come back, let's get in some of the more meat and potatoes of this game other than the, you know, who screamed the loudest kind of a thing. So we'll get in the meat and potatoes. That's after this. This is the Postgame Show, 365 Radio. Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? Invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, who invest their time and experience back to you and your money. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Contact Ben Erlinson at 254-759-8533, Chuck Verno at 720 North 64th Street, Brad Wilson's location at 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, proud sponsors of 365 Sports. Edward Jones, making sense of investing, member SIPC.
Did you know Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco is open to the public? Next time you're in town for a Baylor athletic event or you're in town for tourism, take advantage of their day passes for $10 a piece or the weekend for $30. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers 40 group exercise classes, including indoor cycling and yoga, boot camp, and bar. New free weights, weight machines, TRX rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines, and a spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alec Botch, where you will be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, kids club, 16 tennis courts, and 8 pickleball courts, and youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons available. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit wacotennis.com or visit them next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Game Day Live on Sikkim 365 Radio is brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, TFNB, Your Bank for Life, Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac, Green Nations Brewing Company, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, Edward Jones Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, and Bubba's 33.
So let's jump in the chat room really quick here. Bobby B. Guys, we got out coached on both sides of the ball in this one. I mean,
Not wrong.
I think that's not wrong. And I think, we haven't seen the post game press conference. I'll get to that later, but I don't think Dave Aranda will say anything different than that. I think that's the true strength of Dave Aranda is some coaches don't have the ability to deal in reality in the moment. Like he's very much in the moment. Like sometimes it takes him some time. I think Mike Gundy's gotten better at that. I think he was bad at that early in his career. I think Dabo Swinney's bad at it. I think that's why they lose sometimes at Clemson. When they lose, it's just hard for him to be in the moment. And then when he steps back, he knows. But like Dave Aranda's like immediately in the moment. He knows. But Dabo's been wildly successful. I'm just saying that some coaches are and some coaches aren't. And so I think one of the most interesting stories coming to this game isn't about Baylor at all. They've got to figure it out for next week when they play TCU. But Kansas State has a situation at quarterback, which most teams would want. You can win with either guy. Adrian Martinez, who's a superb athlete and I believe an excellent leader for the team. I think everybody loves Adrian Martinez. But Will Howard has come into his own, and Texas just scooped and scored. It is they are now within a score. Under 5 minutes to go in that one. 4:25 left. So the Longhorns refusing to go away. So TCU's got to get the ball back, run some clock, and probably put some more points on the board because the Longhorn faithful in Austin are alive now. But Will Howard gives them a better chance to win. Puduk and Carl Page both on the chat room. Like that, like he gives them a really good chance to win. He's coming to his own. He's a really strong passer. He was highly recruited, but he had to play as a 17-year-old freshman. He wasn't ready. Pandemic, like all these things that have happened. And then eventually sometimes you will rise to the level of your talent. And I think he has. He's grown into it. What a guy is at 17 and what he is at 20, 21 are different things. And he's stuck with it and looks really good right now and gives them a lot of ability in the offense to open things up. Now, he can't run like Adrian Martinez can, but Martinez has been getting dinged up, and it seems like they play better when Howard is in.
I mean, we all know the capability of Adrian Martinez, but how do you go back to him after your two easily most impressive victories over Baylor and Oklahoma State? Will Howard was the one under center. Like, he looked amazing. 3 touchdown passes tonight. And even when Baylor got pressure on him, he was calm, he was poised, he got out of the pocket, threw it away, reset. Let's continue running this offense.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, they're in a great situation when it comes to quarterback. And might have beaten Texas had Howard been in the game. I think a lot of their fans feel that way. I know that Carl and Puduk certainly agree on the chat room here. Let's see, text line here from the 214, going back to 2013, 2017, local fans and alumni have always been so flat. Even during our prime, practically half the stadium is sitting 90% of the game. Standing and cheering is strictly restricted to fourth to third down and the occasional touchdown cheer. These fans are either just old or really don't care. It's just a fun event to attend for them. Okay, and then look, that's a great point. It's like, they care this much. They're never going to care this much. They care that much, And so that's fine. They're going. Heck, they're there at the games,
Yeah.
But I do think that, part of it just needs to be, and like, maybe it's the way that you do your fan engagement during the games, like, getting the fans loud. Like one of the things that A&M does very early on is they have fish camp and they teach you all the cheers and everything and all the traditions. So before you even go to a class and open a book, you're indoctrinated.
Yeah.
So,
indoctrinated. That's a very kind way of putting it.
I wasn't trying to be. I mean, it's true, and look, I grew up loving that. I thought that's where I was going to go to school. I still love it. I still love to go to games at Kyle Field. And that's why I love to go to games at Kyle Field. I love it. Atmosphere is unbelievable. I've been there, 100 times in my life, and only once or twice have I seen the fans leave and early. And one time it was they had about enough of Dennis Francione, and they're like, "That's it, we're leaving." I remember my dad walking out early at a game. And his "I'm too old for this" losing was the attitude we got. And then we're waiting on the elevator. He was crabby, man. Like you would have thought he had a dentist appointment. Like it was that kind of mood. But Yeah, part of that is that it's just that part of the culture has to like change a little bit if you want it to be permanent. Like so and things they'll grow. And again, Baylor's new to winning consistently.
They are.
Like even under Grant Taff, it was a couple years of good, and then they had to kind of go through and rebuild a couple more years of good, a rebuilding year or two, a couple years of good. He wasn't putting off, Tom Osborne like runs.
No.
But they were good. They won the conference a couple times, but they had gaps in between because of the realities of their situation and that time. The athletic department now is much deeper and better than it's ever been. It's just you have to adjust to the fans who grew up in that era cheering a certain way.
Yeah. I mean, my freshman year at Baylor was the year that they broke that bowl drought, and that was very, very exciting, especially for me. I grew up watching them just absolutely struggle, and my mom, she still works at Baylor, and she would get free tickets when I was growing up. And unless Vince Young or somebody super famous was going to come to the Floyd Casey Stadium, none of my buddies wanted to come to those games.
Yeah.
And that has changed, which is phenomenal. But there might be an issue of maybe we're just being a little bit impatient with this fan culture, discussion that we've been having. Because like you said, they're relatively new to having expectations of winning. And the fans who are used to that, they're younger. And so it might take until, teams got to keep winning. That's another thing. But maybe once those fans get older, and this is just playing the long game here and kind of nauseatingly so, but maybe it'll just take time. And I know that's not what anybody wants to hear.
Yeah, and I hate that we've talked about that so much tonight on the postgame show, but it is an issue that is apparently on the fans' minds. I do think that this was more about Kansas State was totally ready for this game.
Yes, they were.
Baylor did not have their best game plan. Shapen was as mundane, I would say his performance was, and it just nothing hit at the same time. Oh, you get a 12-yard run here. Great. Or 14 yards from Richard Reese. Right after that, it's like 3 plays in a row. You get a holding penalty, like 3 good plays, holding penalty. So when the good thing, bad thing was going on early in the year when Baylor was very average, like against West Virginia, that popped up, but they were in that game because West Virginia's, a little below average themselves, and really a worse team than most in the league. In this game, you met a team that every mistake you make is like a little shot of adrenaline to them. They just, all right, gotcha. I'm gonna, you think you have hope? No, I'm choking you out. That's what Kansas State does. That's what Kansas State has to me that Baylor doesn't, is that they can taste the blood in the water and just go for it. Mm-hmm. As where Baylor, when they taste the blood in the water, they're like, oh, hey, I like this. But they just kind of swim around still.
Yeah.
Like, oh, hey, in a minute, we're going to eat this guy. No. Just go ahead and eat him.
Eat him right now.
Don't let him get away. Don't let him get back to the boat. Don't do that. Yeah, Kansas State's very much they will go on a feeding frenzy, and they certainly did today. So anyway, all right, let's take a break. We'll come back and final thoughts, Jacob, on this game and looking ahead to TCU, who is 1 minute and 20 seconds away from moving to 10-0 and winning in Austin.
Yeah.
Which they've done many times before under Gary Patterson, but this one under Sonny Dykes is huge because it keeps them very much in the CFP hunt.
Yeah, very exciting for them.
All right, we'll take a break right here. We'll come back, wrap it up. This is 365 Sports.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Richard Carr and his team are standing by the Bears in all sports this coming season, but Richard Carr's passion for football started many years ago when he was a trainer for the football team. In addition to his alma mater, Richard Carr also loves selling quality cars and trucks to his Central Texas neighbors. Whether you want the unbeatable GMC Sierra truck loaded with luxury and strong and tough for the workday, or the performance and ride of a Cadillac or Buick SUV, Richard Carr has an amazing lineup of vehicles for you. Stop by for a test drive, contact them online, or call and say Sikkim and you're immediately a VIP at Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac. Find them at Highway 6 at the Imperial Exit or at richardcarr.com.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Game Day Live on Sikkim 365 Radio is brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, TFNB, your bank for life, Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac, Three Nations Brewing Company, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, Edward Jones Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson and Cam Heathcott, and Bubba's 33.
Final score alert, TCU 17, Texas 10. The Horned Frogs, an upset because they were not favored in that game. In fact, they were 7-point dogs, Jacob. They have clinched a spot in the Big 12 championship game.
Well deserved.
Well deserved. And they're to 10-0 and will be right there in the CFP when those rankings come out again this week. They probably won't change any.
No.
Yeah, it'll be the top. Well, at least the top 4 won't change. I don't think anything else has happened to make the rest of it change all that much either, unless North Carolina loses
to Wake.
So Wake, then that would certainly, but that's further down the list. So, but final thoughts on this game. I mean, this team has had a problem of not being able to all put it together at once in games. Mm-hmm. And fortunately for them, most of the time it's just been that one side is just doing so well, it didn't matter. But both sides decided to have their worst night at the same time tonight. And Kansas State's just too good and too well coached to let that go by without punishing you for it.
Yeah, and if you weren't a believer in Chris Kleiman before this week, you've got to be now, because Baylor didn't have the excuse of the injury, list that Oklahoma State had when K-State went and clobbered them. And so it's just a head scratcher, because you have a team that looks really good 2 weeks in a row on the road, and then they get a team that they've had a lot of success at home against in their home stadium and completely, lay an egg. I was about to use a different expression, but it's hard to figure this team out, because 2 weeks go by where I picked the opponent and Baylor, they do everything right that I point out, and then I pick Baylor this week, and yeah, it doesn't go their way. And so if you're a Baylor fan, you just got to hope that they want to be the spoiler of all spoilers next week when TCU comes to town, because TCU, they've got really, really big hopes right now.
Well, yeah.
And it's a rivalry game.
Okay, you want to, make up for this, Baylor fans. If you want this feeling to go away, knock your biggest rival. Well, not your other biggest rival. Your biggest rival is TCU. Knock your biggest rival out of the CFP.
Yeah. How satisfying would that? Would you trade your bowl game eligibility for that win? I think you're a good fan if you say yes.
Look, if you're not going to win the national title and you can make sure that your biggest enemy doesn't either, I do think that is like a worthy fan cause.
Yeah, I'm 31 years old, Paul, and when it comes to rivalries in sports, I love it when people act like they're 12.
Yeah. Brian Hall, please knock them out. Hook them. So, yeah. Okay. Here's a question from Ryan. Focusing on the Bears, I've always been curious why Aranda isn't more involved in play calling, specifically on defense. Robert is fine, but could Aranda be more involved? I think he's chosen the role of the CEO, which I think most of them have to do. Now, I think that's why you get good play callers and leave them alone. I think that sometimes the quiet nature of Dave Aranda leads you to believe that he's not as involved, but Tom Landry was that way.
Yeah.
Tony Dungy was that way.
I mean, I saw Chris Kleiman, there was a huddle going on after that interception that Kansas State had, the first one, and the team huddled up. They all got super pumped, and Chris Kleiman was outside that huddle talking on his headset, being that CEO that you were just talking about.
So sometimes you got to be the CEO. Jacob, can you put up the picture of my friend here? Me and my friend. This was before the game. I'm walking in with Smokey, and this man comes up to me, and he says, "Hey, Paul, I've wanted to meet you for a long time or talk to you for forever." And he said, when you were a kid, you used to go to Cowboys training camp at St. Edward's University with your granddad and my parents. And I said, "Are you Rodney Dowd?" And he said, "Yes, I'm Rodney Dowd. I grew up every summer going to Austin to see my grandparents, and his parents were my grandparents' best friends. The bosom buddies, granddad and I called him Uncle Milton Dowd. I mean, they were best friends. Ruth and Nana were best friends. They were so close. And they, I hung out at their house all the time. In the summertime, sometimes, I would go play golf with Uncle Milty, and he was unbelievable. He was great. He was great. A huge influence on my life. So great to me when I was a kid. All through college, they were always great. I would see them all the time. I would go play dominoes with my grandparents and their friends, which, believe me, I enjoyed thoroughly, even as a 24-year-old, going on Friday nights with them and playing dominoes.
Yeah.
What's hilarious. Going in a room full of old people is always great when you're a kid, and you should never deny the opportunity to either learn something or crack up. But Rodney and I've met him in my life, but I was young, very young when it happened. I probably haven't seen him since I was 12 years old. And even then, we didn't interact that much. I was 12,
Yeah.
But it was great to meet him face to face as an adult. It was great to see a very rowdy Baylor fan and Rodney Dowd. Believe me, he's one of the guys we're talking about. You don't have to worry about him. You don't have to worry about him. But it was great to see Rodney, and it was just a small world thing. I thought it was a good story, a little beacon of light, and a cool story in what was otherwise, for Baylor fans at least, a very depressing day. And we've got a lot of Kansas State fans watching right now and participating, and congratulations to you. That was impressive. And it is what, we interviewed Chris Kleiman a few years ago at Big 12 Media Days, and I thought it was in 2021. It was right after the COVID year. And he left that table, and my thought about that guy was, damn, that guy's good. That's a good coach right there. Kansas State's got a good one. And you're seeing it right now. That attitude is throughout that team. I'm excited to see what they do for the rest of the year as a college football fan. I like what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And for Baylor, look, here's the thing. This one's over. Click, delete it, and go ruin TCU season. That's the goal. Is ruin
Be a
TCU
good
season.
fan, get a little childish on game day, and hope that Baylor beats your biggest rival. Prove there's a conception that TCU hates Baylor more than Baylor hates TCU.
No, it's equal.
No, tip the scale in your favor and prove that you hate TCU more than they hate you.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. So, yeah. I think that's the thing you got to do. But that is not going to be easy because that is a very good team.
Yeah,
that is a very good team. And that's a team that withstood a bunch of stuff tonight, including fumbling to cut the game to one score with 4 minutes left, then got the ball back and didn't give it back.
Yeah, like I said.
They're impressive.
Like I said on the big one too, Paul, TCU has overcome adversity every time that they have faced it this year, and it's been in almost every conference game that they've had.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason they were given the first week of not being in the top four was they've had too much adversity, which to me, the fact that you have it and you get through it is more impressive sometimes than not having it because sometimes you cannot have it because your schedule is cupcakes. And so, but that's a big thing coming next week, TCU. Biggest rivalry game right here at home. I would think that game is trending towards being earlier after what happened tonight, but we'll see. We'll find out the game time tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. North Carolina defeats Wake Forest 36-34. Just thought I'd throw that out there. That's an ACC score, but it's wild and will affect the national picture there in the ACC title game. So some title game spots getting locked up all around the country here in the last few weeks. We're back on Monday with another full episode of Signal 365 Radio. Thanks for watching this whenever you do. Thanks for participating. Thanks to all of you on the chat room. Thanks to all of you who called, all of you who texted, Jake and I and the company. We all really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody. Have a great night, everybody. Be safe.